When Ryan's when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind to Raw with John Pollock and Wai Ting. The 18 that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night. Download it Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the Mic.
We are live. Hello, everybody. I am John Pollock, joined by Wai Ting. Hi, Wai.
What's up, John? How you doing?
I'm doing great. Doing tremendous. I
For
love
real?
my Monday nights. I love them. They're the best. Can't get enough.
Yeah. It's there's always a lot to talk about. Let's just say every week this far, we've just come off of this show with just like a sort of a what the fuck feeling, you know. And I definitely need people to talk to after the fact.
You didn't like the show tonight?
I didn't say I didn't like it.
Oh, okay.
You don't know how I feel. I haven't said how I felt yet.
Well, how was your weekend?
Weekend was good. Yeah, weekend was good. I mean, every time you ask, it's almost like I don't even know how to answer because I feel like it's always the same lately. It's not like I went anywhere, just sort of routine at this point.
Well, you got a lot of great reception to WandaVision. So tell me in a nutshell, what would you be recommending to a non-viewer thus far for WandaVision episodes 1 and 2? And where can people listen to more of your deep thoughts?
Well, the review, by the way, John, is actually called WandaVision. It makes sense. It makes more sense when you see it in writing. But it's me and WH Park. We're going to do a weekly WandaVision podcast. And that is, of course, available on the Post Wrestling Cafe, which is our Patreon feed for only $6 a month. But this week, I'm actually going to make our last episode that we reviewed on Friday free. Ooh. So you can go to postwrestlingcafe.com and you can stream that for absolutely free. I'll probably send a link as well on my Twitter feed at Way0937. So you can sample that first episode. WH Park, when I asked him to do this thing, it was just more like, you know what? I haven't had a chance to talk to WH about comic books on one of these podcasts before, so I thought he'd be perfect. Little did I know how much the man didn't just know about comics, but also about sitcoms, 60s sitcoms, which are a heavy influence of WandaVision. It's a really good show, I think. I mean, it's received pretty mixed reviews for being so different from other Marvel films and I guess Marvel things, TV shows even. But I think as the weeks progress, like the more you look into it, it's one of those things that keeps revealing like hidden layers and rewards repeated viewing. So we'll
talk about what we're about to talk about. Being rewarded with hidden meanings that call back to past story arcs and what is introduced in week 1 and then week 19 it pays off. I will
tell you that there are plenty of transformations mid-scene in WandaVision as well. But the special effects hold really there's no comparison between that and what we saw tonight. But anyway, postwrestlingcafe.com, you can get the first episode for free.
Wai is Mr. Post Wrestling Cafe. Guy is just killing it up there. This week, some cafe highlights. Tuesday, Wai and I will rejoin for Rewind Away, number 78. And I'm really excited to talk to this man. Our man, Neil. A guy that, we haven't heard his voice since the Christmas show. So I look forward to chatting with Neil about the Stone Cold podcast featuring Vince McMahon in 2014. And we're going to talk about Vince McMahon's assessment of the locker room, his thoughts on millennials, and how ambitious the locker room is because it's 2014. We need to make some new stars. We will see what Vince McMahon's mindset was at the tail end of 2014, year 1 of the WWE Network, as he chatted with Steve Austin. And kudos to Neil for selecting a 60-minute review this week.
He's always thinking of us and I think our sanity, but really like the audience as well, because I think this is a very rewatchable interview. Of course, this is the infamous brass ring interview where the man talked about Cesaro in particular, because at Steve Austin's line of questioning, of course. I got way more out of it watching it like years later than I feel like I did the first time around. Because they're just like, it's a real great insight into like how this man thinks, his philosophy when it comes to wrestling versus sports entertainment, some nuggets.
Hey, that's what my dad does. I don't do that shit.
his perspective on like whether or not he truly put the other territories out of business. I look forward to the discussion a whole lot.
Well, we are going to be psychoanalyzing Vince McMahon on Tuesday, and then Thursday, Way, you are going to be chatting the wellness policy.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, it's a week of debuts here because as people will have heard on the Christmas show, I'm debuting a new podcast also on the Post Wrestling Cafe Patreon feed with a good friend of mine, Jordan Goodman. He's a former employee at Ring of Honor who used to work in the office there, but he is also a licensed therapist. And we are going to launch a new podcast called The Wellness Policy, talking to our audience really about topics that we don't usually talk about on these professional wrestling podcasts. And that includes mental health. It includes, perhaps just really kind of like, I don't know, how people have been handling the pandemic, perhaps, maybe even a bit of a getting to know people outside of like what we usually talk about in professional wrestling. And today is actually a great time to get to know Jordan because he was a guest on our friend Scrump's PWT cast. He joined Scrump for like a whole hour, just kind of talking about his own background, talking a bit about what we're expecting to be able to accomplish on a show like this. So that'll debut at 3 o'clock on Thursday, 3 o'clock Eastern, and we invite all Post Wrestling Cafe patrons to join us for the episode. And it'll probably be a free episode that we'll put out this week as well. So that'll be Thursday, 3 o'clock.
So check that out. And then Sunday, you'll be dropping Total Recall and the next edition of Rewind a Vision with WH. Correct.
And that's all at postwrestlingcafe.com.
All right. So sign up for the cafe to get your weekly dose of Wai Ting in all different forms. We will also have a UFC 257 post show Saturday night with myself and Phil. We'll be live immediately after the main event between Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov. We will be up on the Post Wrestling YouTube channel, youtube.com/Post Wrestling. And we will also have it up in podcast form afterwards. So we'll be chatting about that card. Plenty throughout the week and on Saturday. You can also check out an interview I did today with Mike Bond, who was over in Abu Dhabi, and it was really interesting. He went through the whole process of what he had to go through, going first to Las Vegas, all of the testing, a quarantine period there, then flying 16 hours to Abu Dhabi, another quarantine period, and all of the testing involved. Not just getting there, but then throughout this week as he's covering the 3 UFC cards, one of which went down on Saturday. Did you hear a lot of buzz coming out of this card, Way? Because the performance by Max Holloway was out of this world.
Yes, I did. And in fact, at your encouragement, I watched the fight and it was absolutely unbelievable. Well-deserved. And, for an ABC network debut, they got really lucky, I suppose, with the performance like that.
Yeah, this was one of the most dominant performances I've ever seen from any UFC fighter. Like the stats after the fact, I've got some here. He landed 445 significant strikes. The previous record was 290 that he set. What else here? Significant strikes landed in around 141. He threw 746 strikes. The previous record was 541. Like, this guy just shattered every striking record out there over 25 minutes. I was just in awe watching this fight and the pace that he kept for 25 minutes. Like, sometimes you've seen fighters come out where they can just blitz through a round or two and then it's in between rounds, they just totally gas out. This guy was just getting more fresh, and then he's yelling at the end in the 5th round. He's the best boxer out here. I mean, this was an unbelievable performance from Max Holloway, and you couldn't ask for a better platform to do this on ABC. We'll probably get the number. It was delayed. It should be out Tuesday or Wednesday, but this was as great a debut as you could have on a new network with Max Holloway's performance. That was definitely the MMA story of the weekend.
I thought it was quite amazing, but I almost felt equally amazing was the fact that Calvin Kattar stood and survived the entire thing for like 5 rounds.
Did you think there was a point they should have stopped it? Because it was, he took a lot of damage, and I would have been fine from the 3rd round on if they stepped in. But I could also sympathize with Herb Dean that, I mean, he still was fighting, and it was never like this guy was just completely out of this. But I mean, he took an ungodly amount of punishment in this fight, and that's what you want to try to avoid. But at the same time, it was tough. Like there was any time that there was this flurry, the guy would adjust and he would fight back, but the pressure never stopped from Holloway.
It's like one of those things about combat sports where like you have to really be justified to call for a stoppage, because then you'll piss a lot of people off. But that accumulation of damage over 25 minutes really can't be good. It's probably way worse than like one major concussive blow in some cases. So I don't think there was any point where you could have, like you could justify, like as somebody who cares about fighter safety, I think you could justify it at any point, but I think there would have been a lot of complaints, honestly, if it did come prematurely.
It's the dilemma, I think, that comes down to the corner. You're looking at, most corners, I should say, they're going to look at this fight that, hey, if he can make this comeback, this is such a huge fight for him. Do we take this away? But at the same time, like that's where I would like. Some people are looking at this as like the fight of the year. To me, it was like the performance of the year by Holloway, because there was not 1 minute that Calvin Kattar won in this fight. And by the time you're sending him into rounds 4 and 5, like what are we proving at this point other than we're taking a fighter that has already taken an unheard of amount of punishment and putting him in for 5 more minutes? It's certainly a debate to be had. It was tough to say, but it was. For Matt, you can watch it in 2 very distinct ways. If you're watching it from the perspective of Holloway, or the concern by watching it from the side of Calvin Kattar.
But this Saturday, as you mentioned, Conor McGregor returns.
Yes. Are you going to watch this fight, Wai?
By the time it appears, I think I'll get caught up in the hype, and I think I'll probably catch it. Certainly, I know Phil is going to be doing a whole lot more on the Discord, postwrestling.com/Discord. So I'll be joining in on some of that fun, just to kind of watch him, work his magic and play all that out, especially on the post show. So I look forward to all that.
Yeah, Conor McGregor has been doing a lot of media for this fight, a lot more than usual. He's been popping up everywhere. I've seen interviews. Ariel Helwani has spoken to him. Aaron Bronstetter has spoke to him. He was on John McCarthy's podcast. He's been all over the place, which has not always been the case for a Conor fight. He's predicting 1.6 to 2 million buys for this fight. And I can't accurately predict McGregor fights at this point, because they typically over deliver. And the last one with Donald Cerrone a year ago, that was 1.3 million buys. And that was when ESPN Plus, they were at something like 6.6 million subscribers at that point. They're now at well over 10 million. So they've increased that amount too. So in theory, you have a larger pool to draw from. That 1.6, that's a great number, but also doesn't sound out of the realm of possibility that they could top 1.6 for this fight. We'll see if this one has the same level of buzz.
It's also the first Conor fight post-pandemic, and we're talking about a very different kind of, people viewing habit for people. Like, people aren't necessarily gathering, at least we hope not. They're not gathering too much in parties and in individual households. So everybody's
that's a great point.
Order. So yeah, it's going to be quite different. I think the Khabib fight might be a bit more of an indicator.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, because if you like a Conor fight would have been the ultimate, a big group getting together, and even if there were people that were getting together in small groups, it's not like you're going to have your party of, or at least I hope not, parties of 20 that, it might be people that just throw out that extra money for it. They're also jacking up the price for this one. It's an extra $5 in the US on top of it. So it's $64.99 in the US.
During a pandemic, come on, man.
Hey, it's like, hey, let's get all the loose change available in everyone's couches at home.
Doesn't Disney have enough of our money?
Disney's, it's hard times, Wai. Got to make sure Disney gets through this pandemic. Okay, we wouldn't want Disney to have any trouble throughout all of this. So yeah, that's Saturday. It's a big fight, and underneath it is Michael Chandler's debut against Dan Hooker, and Dana White has put out this. He says from his meeting that Khabib is going to watch, and he's going to see if anyone really inspires him to want to fight again. And Khabib's kind of been quiet about it and such. So that is Dana's interpretation of their closed door meeting over the weekend.
Always interesting. That man, Dana White. So that's Saturday, and of course Sunday. It's the big one. Wait, that's next Sunday.
Yeah, I was going to say Sunday. I was like, what's going on Sunday? I'm not aware.
Well, next Sunday is the big one. It is the Royal Rumble. And the only reason I mention it is because today, right now at this moment, we are officially opening up the post-wrestling Royal Rumble pool.
Ooh.
So you can join right now, get all your predictions in, go to postwrestling.com/rumble. We are taking your submissions, your predictions, all the way until the Sunday of the Royal Rumble at 3 p.m. Eastern. We thank our friend, of course, Chris Engler, for setting all that up. And yeah, get your predictions in right now.
Where can people go to join?
postwrestling.com/rumble, or you can find the button at the website.
Perfect. So that will be up. You can submit your picks now, or you can wait a little closer to the show, but that is open. So we will go through all of the results coming out of Royal Rumble weekend, which is always fun to go through all of the results for our annual pool. So check that out, and thank you to Chris Engler for putting all of that together. Any thoughts on Hard to Kill over the weekend? Mainly the main event. It ended with Kenny Omega pinning Rich Swann. I thought a pretty strong main event overall. I thought it was the best match on the show, and clearly building to something larger with Kenny Omega and Rich Swann. And the next pay-per-view was announced for April 24th, Rebellion, which seems to certainly have a Kenny Omega presence on it.
Yeah, I caught the main event, and I caught the Knockouts women's match, as well as the Ethan Page thing, especially after Ethan Page posted the thing that I thought it was a very good main event. The Knockouts match I was less impressed by, to be quite honest with you, but that Karate Man deal was every bit as bad as I think Ethan Page said it was on his Facebook post. And
it was,
I don't know.
It was almost like not even a cinematic match. It was just like a shitty video feature. Like, it was so lazy, and the jokes weren't funny.
I don't know how it was supposed to be. Like, I know it was supposed to be bad. Of course it was supposed to be bad, but I don't know how it was supposed to be really any better than I think what they did, like what it was intended to be. Like, it was just bad.
Not so Hard to Kill. It's like, oh man, brutal. Like, that was his final Impact appearance.
Well, I mean, you don't come back from having your heart ripped out.
Yeah, well, I read that post. It sounded like he did get his heart ripped out watching this thing.
Yes. So, full review of that show, of course, from the past weekend with Davey, Andrew, and Nate. That's on the feed right now. So,
one of the major things over the weekend was the announcement of not just this year's WrestleMania, but the next 2 years of WrestleMania. So this year, they're once again going to be doing a 2-night event on Saturday, April 10th, Sunday, April 11th from Raymond James Stadium, which was set to host the event last year in Tampa. Next year, they'll run Sunday, April 3rd at AT&T Stadium, returning to Arlington, Texas. And then 2 years from now, on Sunday, April 2nd, 2023, they will go to SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California, which was set to be the host of WrestleMania this year. So first off, Wai, the most pressing question is your critique of the 5-minute WrestleMania announcement video.
This is one of those things that, like, is going to either it's going to gain a lot of attention either way, but it's debatable whether or not it's the good type of attention. Certainly, I think if you're more the type of fan who just enjoys straight wrestling, you're going to hate this stuff. I thought I lie somewhere in between. I thought it was like a fun attempt at like delivering a pretty dry message. You know, they had their cast members dress up. It was
very Southpaw regional influenced.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just, it's meant to be a campy kind of fake, in studio report with Triple H and Stephanie. Now, what I especially loved is that you had Roman Reigns appear, and he absolutely did not play along.
Yeah.
He was just like, this is stupid. Just tell him, Paul. And then a bit of a thing with Sasha, I thought it was cute. I thought it was like a nice way to deliver, a pretty kind of, blah, boring message without kind of like the flair of like a major live in-person press conference.
More importantly, is this got coverage on NBC on Football Night in America on Saturday. So that's that's great that like they got coverage of this announcement on NBC during an NFL game as well.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, you have to make it a bit more fun, I think, for a casual audience, right?
What about doing 2 nights this year at WrestleMania? So this will be at Raymond James Stadium, and it should be noted that in the release, they stated, in coordination with local partners and government officials, WWE will announce ticket availability and safety protocols for WrestleMania 37 in the coming weeks. So clearly...
Did they say 2 nights? You're asking if it's 2 nights?
No, it is 2 nights.
Oh, it is 2 nights. I didn't even get that part.
Oh, yeah. This year is 2 nights of WrestleMania, the 10th and 11th.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, I suppose last year worked well enough, and I would assume that these will be shorter shows, and maybe much like Wrestle Kingdom, they want to be able to have 2 sets of audiences to at least.
You would think that this is going to be limited capacity, and I would imagine the goal is run 2 nights where you can hopefully replicate what you could generate if it were 1 night because of the limited capacity. But they have not stated what the capacity limit will be.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I would certainly hope that it wouldn't be full capacity. I mean, our NFL games, at what capacity are those at?
I think most have been running around 40.
Okay. 40%.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, so 2 nights. I like the idea of doing the 2 nights. I think it worked this past year, and this is with, you'll certainly have a better environment. The idea of bringing fans back, it's certainly one that you can be leery about. I think you would be completely justified in having that concern. But what I don't doubt is there will be demand, and there will be demand from out of the state for this show. And I don't think they will have trouble. If this is half capacity, let's just throw that figure out there. I don't think they're going to have trouble selling those tickets.
I don't think so either. I think there are plenty of people who I think are, sick of, sitting at home. And if they see that WrestleMania is near their town or within driving distance, they will make an effort and take the risk, at this point. I'd be curious to know what sort of protocols that they'll have in place. What sort of, contact tracing, what sort of mandatory, they've only had those very small crowds as a part of what is it, NXT show up. And
yes.
So, how do you extend that to potentially 20,000 plus people?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a case where they're going to draw criticism for this because of the NFL precedent. It is an outdoor stadium. That said, I don't know if it's the best idea, but it is. They're hardly the only ones doing this. It's a different case when you're talking about indoor sports such as the NHL and the NBA. But for the NFL, there are fans going to these games now, so I think that they feel, hey, this is going to be our chance to do this, and they're probably going into this with some optimism that by April the vaccine will be more readily available. But I would 100% not be going to this show if it was next door to me.
April is not that far away. And I mean, I don't really know how quickly this vaccine rollout is maybe in other parts of the country, but it could definitely be faster, I feel like, at least in our neck of the woods. But I was going to say, do you think we get WrestleMania weekend as a whole? Do you think we get, all the independents showing up and having a whole weekend of that?
Well, they did state here, information on additional WrestleMania week events is forthcoming. So that tells me that they will be planning other things, but what will those other things be? We've seen, that they have to do SmackDown on the Friday. WrestleMania is Saturday and Sunday, and then Raw is Monday. So I don't expect the takeover to fit. I just don't think you could do that. You could do some virtual events, like if you want to do a virtual access where people can do your virtual meet and greets, if that's something that they want to do. I know the idea has been thrown out there about could you do the Hall of Fame virtually? Yes, you could, but I don't understand why, because to me, the point of the Hall of Fame from the WWE standpoint is to draw a house, to be able to sell tickets to this thing. So if you can't do that, why throw it away? Save it for another time. You don't have to do a Hall of Fame this year. I don't know. To me, it's not a must do event until you can reap the benefits of doing this and you can sell 10,000 tickets to a Hall of Fame ceremony.
They did announce a whole class from last year that haven't been inducted yet. So it just could be a case of them wanting to, perhaps get past this class so that by the time you get to it next year, you can announce a new class. Maybe save it for a network special. I mean, it won't be really all that exciting. It'll probably be like the Slammies with people accepting in their living rooms and whatnot. But it might just be a way to kind of move on, for instance. What about the independents?
I think there's no doubt that some are going to do it. I think now that these dates are locked in, I think there will be companies that are going to go and run in Florida. And those I'd be very concerned about. Because you can't expect independent companies to be doing the level of testing for its performers that WWE will. I hope we're at a point now where, much like we're seeing with this upcoming GCW Fight Forever 24-hour deal, that they are requiring negative tests from performers and staff. So I think that's the bare minimum you need. But that said, it's like, what kind of venues are the options here? Are these going to be indoor venues? Or can you do outdoors? I do not like that idea, but I do think that there are going to be companies that are 100%. There's going to be companies that are going to try.
I mean, financially, like if they're looking at any sort of like gathering of a wrestling audience, I mean, this will probably be the biggest one you'll have in quite some time, without a doubt, really. So, yeah, we just hope everybody does it safe.
What would be like if you're looking at a typical WrestleMania year? Like, what is a reasonable expectation of like percentage of like out of town people that would go to these WrestleManias? Do you think it would be a low number? Do you think it would be like 50% of those that buy tickets at WrestleMania could be from out of Florida?
I don't think, I mean, I don't know these stats at all. I'm sure like the people doing the research have these like concrete numbers, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was as much as 50.
Because you would have to imagine it'd be pretty low. Like, I can't imagine people from other countries coming for this one, mainly because
for this one, no.
Like, I don't think they can, or it would, well, either you can't, or it would require like a quarantine period to come back.
Yeah, I don't really see that. But if you're talking about filling 20,000, people into a stadium, I don't think you need people from out of town.
Yeah, if it's 20,000 both nights, like, I think that they will sell that for the novelty of WrestleMania for 2 nights. I guess the question then becomes, after you do this, like, what is your stance on fans after the fact?
I mean, that's another interesting question, is like, because by the time that Mania comes around, they'll probably have to move out of Tropicana Field, right? For
the Rays
for baseball, so they'll have to move to another place for these things, and wherever they move, will there be the capacity for an audience? I'm sure like things are kind of week to week at this point. Who knows what the world's going to look like by then? What other sports will be doing by then? But if this goes well, I don't see why they wouldn't at least have a partial audience for Raw and SmackDown.
The last thing is that for the next 2 years, AT&T Stadium, which they ran in 2016, and then SoFi Stadium finally gets their show 2 years delayed. They've announced just single night events. Do you think that the option is there, or do you feel like they will get back to WrestleMania on its own night after this year?
It's a really great question. I mean, I'm sure it's a matter of like, I think if they have it their way, they would do the single night thing completely full, rather than splitting them into 2. So that's my prediction. I don't know if they can bank on filling a complete arena 2 nights in a row.
Yeah, AT&T Stadium, I know they throw out that 100,000 figure. The number of the Arlington police stated that the number of people through the turnstile, so that would include everyone in, it was just over 80,000. So that was a more realistic number of who were in the building that night. And you're right, it's such a gigantic stadium. I can't imagine them trying to do that one 2 nights. Maybe next year is when you do the piggyback with TakeOver back to a Saturday night kind of deal.
Sure.
All right, so that's the wrestling news. Just quickly here, I just wanted to mention Paul Varelans passed away over the weekend. He was known in the early days of the UFC. In fact, I'm fairly certain UFC 6 was the first UFC tape I ever rented. And Paul Varelans would have been one of the very first MMA fights I ever saw, for his fight with Cal Worsham when he debuted at UFC 6.
So one of the first MMA fighters you've ever seen.
Yeah. This would have been like late 95, early 96. So he debuted at UFC 6, fought twice that night, losing to Tank Abbott in the second round, and then just became, like a well-known figure during the early UFC craze when they were, very popular during that first wave of popularity. He came back at UFC 7 and then did ensuing fights as well throughout 1996, and then went elsewhere. He was able to go over and just do one-night tournaments and fought like quite a lot of tough guys during his career, like Igor Vovchanchin when he was relatively unknown. He fought him. He fought Chemo, Mark Kerr, Dick Vry was his last fight. And this was crazy. At the end of his career, his last 3 fights, he fought in a Vale Tudo Championship tournament on February 3rd, 98. He did 2 fights. Then 5 days later from Brazil, he flies to the Netherlands and on February 8th fights Dick Vry and knocks him out at a Rings Holland card. So in the span of 5 days and 2 different continents, he was able to fight. Like, this was just the absolute insane days of mixed martial arts. He also had that brief stint with ECW in 1996 with the debacle involving Taz, where they brought him in to lose to Taz at Hardcore Heaven that year. Did not go very well, and that was kind of his brief tenure within professional wrestling. But he had gotten sick last month. It turned out he had COVID, and he had been in hospital in Atlanta for this past month and then died over the weekend. I was stunned at how young he was. He was still only 51, which gives you a sense of like how young he was fighting, getting into mixed martial arts, no holds barred in 1995, but a standout football player at San Jose State University. And Tuesday, I'm going to have a quick chat with Paul Lazenby up on the site because he got to know Paul Varelans pretty well when he went over to Japan. And Paul Lazenby was there with Pancrase, kind of helped out Varelans a lot. They became really good friends. So we'll have a chat with Paul Lazenby on Tuesday talking about the polar bear, Paul Varelans. So there you go. That is all of the news to get into. Okay. I built myself up. Are you ready to talk about Raw?
Let's get it out of our system. Yes.
Okay. This is going to be detox. We start off with a video in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on Martin Luther King Jr. Day in the, celebrated everywhere. Randy Orton opens the show. He is in the shadows, and he emerges. There is a saying that people who fight fire with fire usually end up with ashes. Ashes of the one responsible for their affliction. The voices in my head have never been louder, encapsulating my every thought, just like this mask encapsulates my face. And there he is wearing his, Mr. Wrestling 1 Destroyer mask. This is this, like, if I ever got burned in the face, I'm glad to know that I have a lucha mask in case I ever get so severely burned. That would be the proper bandaging for my face way.
This was not like medical grade mask?
It could have had some gauze inside, maybe.
Yes. Well, I'm open to like a visual change for Randy Orton's character. He's had the same look for such a long time, but like, I didn't expect him to kind of be reincarnated as sort of like a Phantom of the Opera, here, delivering this like in a spotlight, delivering this like 5-minute long soliloquy, like as if, fuck, what was this, man? What a weird way to start the show.
I transcribed a lot more, but I'm not going to get through all of this.
Oh, please try your best. Do as much as you want.
The pure hatred I had for myself had to be redirected. And he explains that his new victim arrived like a lamb to slaughter until she interrupted. Now look at me. Look at me. This is the damnation I receive for showing compassion. And he hasn't been able to sleep because every time he closes his eyes, all he can see is that ball of fire hurling towards his face. And there is no compassion left after this inferno engulfed his face, and they turned up the dramatic music to bring this scene to a height. He's wearing the mask to not only protect himself, but to shield everyone from the horror he endured. He considers himself lucky. He came away with first-degree burns. It could have been worse. It could have disfigured his face forever. But he doesn't blame Bliss. He blames him, the Fiend. And after he sent him to hell, Alexa was merely the vehicle. I'm glad he used the term vehicle because this was the start of Raw, and dude, it drove off a cliff from the beginning, and we just kept free falling for 3 hours.
Well, man, this story, what have we had so far? We've had a man burn another man alive. We've had somebody about to burn somebody alive, but decided at the end not to. We've had a fireball, and now we've got the result of that. Well, tonight, another layer tonight we're about to discuss. But
he's now the man in the iron mask.
Yeah, or Doctor Doom, for instance. Turning him into like a comic book villain or whatever he's supposed to be, babyface or heel. I still can't really tell. I mean, it actually kind of makes sense for Randy Orton because he's going up against a comic book character like The Fiend. But I'll say, like, seeing this, I got the feeling that at least Randy Orton was sort of like the lone human being character in this thing, who at least kept the whole thing somewhat grounded. Now it's just gone way too far into, like, bad sci-fi B-movie territory. Complete here again with these, like, honestly, like, okay, Orton, for all how terrible the storyline is, I think he does a fine job executing a ridiculous script like this. I think he does a better job than a lot of people would with this sort of thing. But it was just way too long. It was so long. Like, just him talking there, making this very kind of like long, drawn out explanation about the story so far. And with these endless slow pans and cross dissolves that ultimately I think just kind of made this thing look really cheap and amateur. So overall, I just thought it was like pretty laughably corny and definitely overstayed its welcome.
Are you telling me that if you got burnt in the face and had to cover yourself up in a wrestling mask, you wouldn't be consoling yourself by watching past Royal Rumble tapes?
I wouldn't be doing that, nor would I be like standing in the middle of a ring by myself with like a spotlight talking for 5 minutes. Like that's not anyway. Realism is not what we're really aiming for here, right?
No, not on tonight's show. No, we were divorced from reality. He said The Fiend wants to stop him from winning the Royal Rumble, as they show highlights of him winning in 2009 and 2017. He said, you can chop my limbs off, but it won't stop me from winning the Rumble. That's actually a brilliant plan, because if he got his limbs chopped off, what feet are going to hit the floor?
Very good point. So
he couldn't lose.
Okay, so didn't they have Zach Allen in the Rumble ever?
Was he in 2004?
I don't know, but like, how did they explain that?
I don't even know if he was in the Rumble that year.
Oh, well, missed opportunity.
Yeah, brilliant. So he's playing to win the Rumble. He's going to get over this little first degree burn issue, and he enjoys the pain. It fuels his every move. And he's going to burn everyone's Rumble dreams to ashes as he lights a match and then blows it out.
Yeah,
kind of like his feud with Edge. It was really hot, and then boom, into smoke. This thing went,
and somebody's face got burnt on fire. Yeah, man. I don't really know what to think about this. I know exactly what to think about it. I think it kind of sucks, and I think it's just gotten way overboard. And I love how the awkward transition is not from, you just had your face burnt. You're not really out for revenge. Your next thing is, I'm going to enter the Royal Rumble.
It was like his go home promo. I'm going to beat 29 other men, face or no face.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. You know what? At this point, why not just go even more extreme? Like, I need Randy Orton complete with like a metal Doctor Doom mask. He should come out with a cape. Like, he should
maybe he can breathe fire.
Accent. Oh, breathing fire. Yeah. He should take it out to space, have him like cut me a promo from the space shuttle or something.
So from there, these poor announcers, dude, the stuff they had to react to on tonight's show, it was just comical. They preview the show. Charlie, earlier in the day, spoke to Lacey Evans and Ric Flair. And Lacey is asked, what is this relationship with Rick? She asks, is this TMZ? She says Ric Flair is a legend. And last week, he lived up to his nickname as dirtiest player in the game. So she's learning from the greatest to ever step into the ring. And tonight, we're going to watch Peyton Royce knock that nasty queen off her throne as Ric Flair just nods in approval at this woman insulting his daughter.
So now, like, on commentary, they explain that Charlotte and Rick are actually, fine. they've kind of like what? They understand each other, or Charlotte has an understanding and that she's cool with her dad? Is that
well, they explained that they've had problems in the past.
And this is right, okay. So she has turned on her daughter, but Charlotte's like, oh, that's just dad being dad.
Well, I guess she's more upset now. She knows what the game is. She knows that Rick is being used, so we're supposed to feel bad for Rick here. Because he's clearly being a pawn for Lacey to get to Charlotte.
Right, so Charlotte's not mad at the betrayal. She's more mad at the manipulation.
The heat is on Lacey, yes.
Okay, great.
Peyton jumps Charlotte on the way to the ring, and we get into our match. Flair went to tackle her and lost her and had to reposition on top before they go to the floor. Flair then nails a forearm neck breaker, and then Rick comes out, followed by Lacey in Rick's robe. Charlotte was upset by this. This was considered
looked good in the robe.
Sure. I don't know why Charlotte was so furious about this, but this was supposed to be just sacrilege that, oh no, you're wearing my dad's robe next to him. I'm distracted. But all this was a setup for a 2 count when Royce hit her with a spin kick and we went to commercial. Flair then boots her to the floor. And then she starts yelling, calling Lacey down. But Lacey has left. Her and Rick are gone. She's just yelling to no one on the stage. So Charlotte tries to place Peyton's leg on the rope so she can attack the knee. The leg falls down. So she tries again to hook it on the rope. Again, the leg falls. So Charlotte just says, fuck it, and still goes to drop on the knee, even though the knee is on the ground. It was very confusing. I think they just called an audible because Charlotte hit her, and then Charlotte just repositioned, chop blocked the knee, and applied the figure 8, and wouldn't release the submission, but got the win in 12:03.
I thought a pretty average match. I like Charlotte's added aggression here. I guess seeing dad with stepmom in Lacey. Yeah.
This feud is it's going places.
I don't know what the initial intent for this feud was supposed to be, whether or not they were supposed to go this hard with
put Ric Flair on television. That seems to be the goal here. It's who's someone that will get us attention? Ric Flair. And I think he already feels less special 3 weeks in a row on TV.
I think Flair was always supposed to pair off with Lacey with the story of Lacey being Dawn Marie, somebody who's just kind of using Rick to get at Charlotte, flirting with him and everything. It just really got off to a really bad start with it looking like Flair was intentionally turning on Charlotte. If that spot had been executed perfectly, would I feel differently about this feud? Maybe. But maybe not. It's not great. I'm trying to think what's missing, because I actually quite like Dawn Marie and Al Wilson. Those are fun. And maybe we're missing the backstage skits. Maybe I need to see Lacey and Ric Flair in a hotel room or something. They need to go on dates, or they need to be out to dinner, and it's Flair being Flair and being a bit more vulnerable to manipulation.
The difference was that storyline, it was what it was, and it was just its own thing. It was like Dawn Marie and Tori Wilson's story on SmackDown. They were really disconnected from any kind of seriousness that Charlotte is on this show. And I think that this is, and you're also not going to go as far as they did with Tori Wilson and Dawn Marie in 2003.
You mean with the story? Or
yes.
You mean just the crowd reception?
In terms of what that storyline was, it was essentially just, here is a way to prolong this feud with Dawn Marie and Tori Wilson, and we can do our lesbian storyline, and we can do whatever segments to get Dawn Marie in as little clothing as possible every week on TV. That's obviously not what they're doing here. They're trying to do a serious story here for Charlotte that is completely incomprehensible, with Ric Flair just playing this random father that suddenly has no connection to his daughter and is just swept up by Lacey Evans. It's not a believable storyline. I don't think it's all that compelling of one. And it seemed like Charlotte you could go in multiple directions with. I don't think this is, She's in dual storylines as we're talking about because they're already setting up the tag title program.
What's messed up is that, like, since they won those tag team titles, there's been, like, nothing. No follow-up, no real storyline attached to those belts whatsoever. It like, her and Asuka just kind of went off and did their own thing.
Well, Asuka hadn't been on TV for a few weeks.
Okay, fair. But, I mean, beyond this, I feel like they're just going to lose the belts. And what was really the point of giving them the titles in the first place?
Yeah, you could have used Lana here.
Oh, yes. Yeah, what happened to that?
Yeah, she went through one too many tables, got that win over Nia, and then poof, disappeared.
Like they spent weeks and weeks and weeks like giving her airtime to like give her that value, and then it was just like gone.
Well, this segment was gone. Oh, the Hurt Business meet Matt Riddle backstage. He explains he lives his life free, and he takes the high road, which was meant to be a joke. He compliments the Hurt Business on how they dress, compared MVP to Gordon Gekko, which began our night of dated movie references, and he runs through nicknames for all of them. Lashley tells them to go along. He's going to chat with Riddle. Lashley tells Riddle, I like flip-flops, but they're bad for your feet. What do you mean, bro? So Bobby Lashley stomps the floor, and Matt Riddle has to fall down and scream in pain. Unfortunately, you, the viewer, got to see a full angle and got to see that this man came absolutely nowhere near this dude's foot. How this aired was baffling to me. This was an easy, okay, guys, cut. We're either going to do that again or we're going to shoot it where you're going to stomp and we're just not going to shoot the foot because you came nowhere close to stomping this guy's foot. This looked so silly. And the punchline was Bobby saying, I told you they were bad for your feet.
Yeah. I can't get mad that he didn't really stomp on the dude's feet.
Well, don't show it then.
Yeah. I actually didn't really rewind to see whether or not you did actually see the lack of contact.
He also did not sell this at all in his match. Like, he was fine in the match. It wasn't even like it was this handicap he had to overcome.
He taped up the foot. Yeah, that was it. So, I guess it was just, another bullying segment with the Hurt Business and meant to show what assholes they are. But it just came across like another kind of campy, bad, poorly acted, poorly scripted WWE backstage segment, man.
If you saw how much he missed, you would have just laughed out loud. It was so silly.
Oh, okay.
Afterwards, the Lucha House Party are with Riddle and asks if his foot is okay. He explains his cousin Dylan once rode over his foot with a truck, but Riddle still made it to the prom. You said this guy was the worst on the mic last year. I don't know what you're talking about, Wade. This guy clearly going for a repeat this year.
Did I say that last year?
No, this year you gave him more.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, this was last week, Way.
Yeah. There are a lot of candidates, I know.
Well, my choice had a stellar outing tonight. Uh-huh. Mustafa Ali is with Kofi. He cuts a promo. This was earlier in the day about being home with a broken jaw isn't enough for Kofi. He wants to break his heart and his spirit by hurting Xavier Woods. And he hopes that Kingston's injury is so bad that he can't make it to the Rumble, Elimination Chamber, or WrestleMania. So you can see what I went through and watch someone take what is yours. Finally, a good promo on this show.
Yeah, it really is amazing when you see like something come from the heart from somebody versus something that was like obviously written for somebody else and rehearsed to death a million times so that it has no chance of feeling natural at all. This was great. Like it was well done, a serious promo from Ali and straight to the camera and to the point. I wonder if like the intent of him kind of like, transitioning from this Woods program to Kofi and Ali, I wonder if that was always the intent, when they started the whole thing last week, because I don't recall much mention of Kofi last week, at least, from Ali in relation to his whole background with him. And I don't think Ali's really brought Kofi up since Kofi was announced to move to Raw. So maybe this was just kind of like something they realized midway through. but I'm glad they have, because it seems like they're building to Ali versus Kofi.
I think the spot should be Mustafa Ali like sneaks up and he gets the elimination of Kofi. Like that big elimination spot is Ali's in the Rumble, and Kingston's dumped out.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So Xavier Woods took on Mace. This guy, what a showcase this was. Mace is beating him down. He starts pulling at Woods' jaw. He's going to break his jaw as well. But Woods breaks free. The honor roll gets caught, and then he hits a baseball slide dropkick to Ali. And then Ali gets mad, and he tells Mace, "Do it now!" And Retribution circles the ring. Woods gets dropped with a boot, and then Mace puts him up on his shoulders. I don't know what he was trying to hit here. It looked very sloppy, and he won in 4 minutes and 6 seconds. It was so bad that during the replay, they didn't even show the ending. They just showed the opening punch when Xavier Woods punched Ali before the commercial break. And Woods lay in the ring for about the entire second hour of Raw, selling this devastating finisher.
It's fine booking. Just continues the story and seems to set up someone's return, probably Kofi coming back in to help him out to even the odds. I was thinking, man, could this be Ricochet's spot? But clearly not after tonight. Could it be anybody else? I don't think it will be.
No, I think Woods is going to do the exact same thing as Ricochet. He's going to lose to all these guys. He's going to go 0 for 4, so that means a slapjack should be up next.
Pretty much, yeah.
You know, I started Raw late, so I was seeing the photos they had of Orton in the first segment, and I thought they'd given Slapjack a new mask. That's who I thought it was. No, he's still got the hockey mask. Thank God.
It's not a hockey mask, I don't think.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know what it is. I don't know where they found this one. Like, it really looks like a paper plate cut up.
Sarah Schreiber interviewed Asuka. What do you expect tonight against Alexa? I don't know. They then played the Fireball replay, and it was like she continued her promo because we come back to Asuka mid-sentence with the words, "Alexa has dark side." And we went to a commercial. I was like, what the hell was this? I don't know what this was.
I have no idea what this was. I know Asuka. Okay, first of all, I know Asuka is not a character who speaks many words, but this was ridiculous. Like, there was no semblance of an interview here. It was like one person asked.
It's like words. It was just random. She got literally. She was scripted to say 8 words with a replay breaking them up.
Like, why would they go to the replay after somebody answers, "I don't know"?
Dude, it honestly felt like she did like this 1 minute promo, but they played the replay over 40 seconds of it. Like, it's so weird.
Yeah, like, I don't know if they just needed to pad this thing out for time and needed a place to just insert this kind of replay of Alexa being bad or something, but it was as if they had lost the whole page of script for Asuka and just decided to play it out like it was a complete segment anyway.
This would be the least of Asuka's troubles on Monday night. They showed the WrestleMania video, and we come back with Alexa's playground. Alexa's in her playground on the swing, and she wants to address the Viper in the room. And she said she just came out last week to talk before things got heated. And I can recommend some good sunblock for you. We had been under the impression that The Fiend was somehow the really poorly booked babyface in this program. I really don't know what this program is.
I don't think Alexa's the babyface. Clearly, she's not. She went up against Asuka tonight.
Okay.
So that makes Randy...
Are we to feel sympathy for Randy as he threatens to murder everybody in response to this burning? I now can channel all my hatred towards you because I have no compassion left.
John, it's 2021. Shades of gray, okay? These are real people with real stories. It's not black and white.
She welcomes Asuka. Poor Asuka. She had to just play frightened this entire segment with Alexa. She's completely scared of this woman. Alexa started talking to an imaginary person in the empty swing. She said, "It wasn't supposed to be like this. You're still supposed to be here." And I could only imagine like this was a call for the younger audience that is tuning out in droves for this. Asuka says it would be her honor if Alexa won the Royal Rumble and they'd face each other at WrestleMania. I just couldn't. I could not imagine 3 more months of this. So Bliss, Asuka starts playing her theme song and dancing to it. This upsets Alexa. And then after she's talking to the imaginary person that we're, I guess, to believe is the spirit of the Fiend, Asuka says he's still here. And Alexa says, don't say his name. And it ends with her going over to a rocking horse.
Because the rocking horse was moving on its own to signify that, I mean, there's a presence there. Maybe Vince got on Disney Plus this week, saw that everybody was talking about this new, Marvel show, and decided we could tell the story of somebody with a dead lover conjuring up imagery of them still being around. Maybe this was it. But for me, like, a big fault was seeing Asuka here, of all people. Your double champion, somebody who's been positioned as really your most credible threat in the women's division, having to sell for this, like, ghost.
It was awful.
I get the idea, okay? It's like Hikaru Shida, Abaddon, like it's Yokozuna, Undertaker. I guess there's some sort of rule that, like, Asians are all superstitious and, like, can't deal with, like, ghosts and shit. Fine, but I wouldn't have done it with Asuka. For one thing, her acting was awful. It was like either the direction was not clear, or she just is not very good at it. She was terrible here. I don't think Alexa was that much better. I think for one, it's one thing for, like, Hikaru Shida to also be freaked out by, like, something legitimately scary looking, like a demon, like Abaddon. I think it's another for Asuka to be freaked out by, like,
the children's character,
attractive woman with pigtails on a swing set. Like, there's really nothing that makes her look all that different from her usual self here. And man, it was just like, I don't really understand the direction of her suddenly, like, having to appease Alexa by, like, consoling her and, like, dancing. Like, if you're just gonna be scared, then just act scared and, like, creeped out. Like, I don't understand, like, the rest of this segment. It came across pretty confusing, I think, just even in a narrative way. It made Asuka look bad, and it's not the type of, like, fear where you want to see her overcome like you do, or at least I did with Hikaru Shida.
Yeah, I think that the line is so low when it comes to performances at times that I think, like, there's a segment of people that just look at this Alexa Bliss character and are just so wowed by it. To me, it's almost irrelevant, because how does this fit into the body of your show? And if your argument is you can have 1 or 2 supernatural characters, it's not just 1 or 2 characters in The Fiend or Alexa Bliss. It's all the supporting cast that have to enter this world and play off of these people. And how many swings and misses have we had that it's just done a number on these baby faces? And Asuka was just added to the pile tonight. They come off so ridiculous. And if you want to just talk about straight on storytelling, what is the hope of what the viewer wants out of this program with The Fiend and Randy Orton? Like, what is the resolution you're rooting for? Are you hoping that The Fiend comes back to life and kills this man? Are you hoping that Randy Orton is going to kill The Fiend? I don't think there's any of that, because it hasn't been great storytelling. It's just like, what is the most conjured up ideas we can come up with on a weekly basis and have just completely a loss of logic, which you can get away with in aspects, but you've dragged down significant performers. Randy Orton is one of them. He is just a complete comedy figure at this point on the show to me. And him and Asuka, I think, were 2 of the strengths of this program 6 to 8 months ago.
Yeah. I think that's one of the central concerns about this whole thing is, like, there's really nobody to cheer for. You're not really supposed to like anybody, and I don't know if I'd really even want to see them fight each other by the end of it all. And now that Asuka's dragged into it, I definitely have concerns. I have a lot of concerns about, like, whether or not her level of acting is capable of telling a story like this. I think Randy Orton is somebody who you can at least trust to, like, have a soliloquy performance like you saw at the opening of the show, I don't trust Asuka to be able to do the same. Like, you know what Asuka's strengths are. It's her incredible wrestling. She's very charismatic, doing her weird thing. It's not, I don't think, doing this type of, like, you know, acting scared, supernatural type of segment. So, yeah.
I thought at the end of this, like, this will be a front runner for worst segment of the year. By the end of the show, I don't even know if it was the worst segment on tonight's show.
Yeah.
Which brings us to Schreiber interviewing The Miz and Morrison, and tonight, Bill Goldberg will appear on the dirt sheet, and they promise it will be controversial. Jeff Jarrett previewed Drew McIntyre and Bill Goldberg. He quoted a Toby Keith song. I might not be as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I've ever been, as he cut this promo in front of his wall of lanyards, including a Triple Mania one, and he is predicting Bill Goldberg wins. Spear, jackhammer, 1, 2, 3.
Hell of a prediction. Yeah. Nice nod to Toby Keith, former TNA star.
Yep, TNA original.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke came out, and Tom Phillips asks, how are all... So Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax are out in the other corner. So we've got Mandy, Dana, Shayna, and Nia all out. And Phillips asks, how are all four going to coexist come the Royal Rumble match? I'm scratching my head. I was like, has he confused this with the Survivor Series? Because that is not what they have to do in this match. So Byron and Samoa Joe, I could tell these two just looked at each other. They're like, do we let that pass? Nope. Byron politely explained how that made no sense. And then Joe just flat out said, I don't think they really have to coexist in that match. It's every woman for herself. And we moved on. So we had Mandy Rose versus Shayna Baszler.
I cut him a lot of slack. They have to juggle a lot on these shows.
Listen, I'm not being nice, but I was in a bad mood during this show. By this
the match types, the genres, the depth.
In fairness, this isn't like the first time we're trying this Royal Rumble thing out. I think everyone's got a concept of it. Every man for himself. It's a tagline. Nia Jax was on commentary. So the story is, the team that hates each other are not getting along with one another.
The team that hates each other, that being Shayna and Nia, they can't
are having problems. They can't get along with one another.
Uh-huh, yeah.
My question is, they couldn't get along as champions. Now they have lost the titles. Why are they still teaming together? These two are at each other's throats every week. They would explain this later. So there's knees from the clinch. Byron is detecting that there's some bad blood developing between Jax and Baszler. Baszler stomps the elbow. Brooke distracts, does a roll-up, but then Baszler kicks out the arm, twists it, and then turns it to the Kirifuda clutch, and Mandy Rose taps yet again in 3:46. After the match, Baszler and Jax continue to argue. Dana comes off the apron, drop kicks Nia, sending Baszler into the post, and we are warned, all is not well in the Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler camp. Back to those days when they were just insulting one another. Now they're at odds with one another.
You know, somehow in the midst of all this, like, they're also supposed to be pushing Dana and Mandy as potential contenders for this tag team titles, which I'm assuming Nia and Shayna are going to win again, and then they'll face Dana and Mandy for. And I just feel like they have a long way to go for Dana and Mandy to get them hot enough to, you know, be credible contenders. She's lost like 2 weeks in a row.
Oh, dude, they've been losing every week, every segment. Which Shayna laid these two out last week or 2 weeks ago.
Right. So I'm guessing, like, you know, maybe like during the Rumble they'll have a big elimination of Nia, maybe the both of them, and that'll kind of be their way of getting them ready. But yeah.
They continue to argue backstage. Charlie observes they aren't getting along. They note we never got along. But Charlotte and Asuka, they don't get along either, which I've clearly missed something. And they want the rematch that they never received, even though we had that stipulation where you don't have the automatic rematch anymore. I guess that's been rescinded.
They forgot about that.
Jax tells Shayna, that's a good idea.
How does Charlotte and Asuka not get along? Didn't, like, last time we saw them together, they were like talking about, you know, helping each other's, like, helping my friend out.
Yep.
Okay.
Schreiber interviewed Charlotte and asks, how uncomfortable is it to watch Lacey wearing your father's robe? Not being involved in a romantic relationship with your father, but wearing his robe. Charlotte says she's constantly been accused of living off her last name, getting opportunities she doesn't deserve. But now there is a woman draping herself over her father, living off my last name. She is using my dad to get to me. But I have learned from the dirtiest player in the game since day one, and maybe I need to go down that path. You can wear his robe, but you'll never wear my crown.
What does she mean when she's going to, like, I guess go down the dirty path?
Yeah.
She going to hit on her husband or something?
Oh, yeah. Maybe she, I don't know. I guess we did introduce the husband, right? Or was it just the kid?
Maybe just the kid. I don't know.
Listen, this is one of the best parts of Raw. The cleaned up Roman Reigns, Adam Pearce segment from Friday.
Oh, I skipped it. What happened? How did they clean it?
They used their magic. They must have done another voiceover with Adam Pearce, but it sounded seamless. But they had like Pearce's lines that were all screwed up. They just put the camera on Reigns. Like you would have had no clue at the mic issues they had on Friday. They are the best at doing this stuff. Oh, Adam, I need a minute here. Adam Pearce is with Ricochet. He tells him, Ricochet, Rick, a win over AJ tonight could go a long way for you. It could start your road to WrestleMania. Maybe you can get into the Royal Rumble. AJ walks into the scene with...
So Ricochet can't even declare himself to enter the Rumble.
We've learned the hierarchy. There's those that can declare, and then there's the Drew Gulak geeks. Guess where Ricochet is slotted?
Yeah, clearly.
AJ and Omos walk into the shot. They make fun of Pearce for running away from Roman Reigns, stating at least if you fought him, you would have lost, but would have left with your dignity. And then the segment that I literally had to rewind to make sure that these were the words that came out of the man's mouth. Ricochet. I feel bad for you because it sounds like you have selective amnesia. You know, like Drew Barrymore in 50 First Dates. So then this fucking geek explains the plot of this movie. And AJ says, I know the movie. It's in my top 10, along with The Notebook. And then Ricochet points out that you also lost at TLC. And he gets all angry, and he's going to prove he deserves to be in the Royal Rumble. Dude, like, I cannot fathom the stuff that they give this poor guy to have to recite. This was a new low.
Man, too much of this show really takes place in, like, in a script. And, I think we're so past the argument of like, man, these guys don't sound all that natural. Like when they're reading all this stuff, like we're way beyond that.
Dude, this would have been impossible. Like I don't think Dwayne Johnson could have done much with this.
Fuck, I don't think Daniel Day-Lewis could have pulled this one off. Like it's a combination of people who aren't actors trying to act and also just really bad, probably very rushed scripts. Because I don't know how much time they would have had to perhaps get all this stuff out there.
How do you arrive at this movie? Like what is it about that? Like a 17-year-old reference that that's the go-to.
Well, it's probably old people who are writing all this stuff. You know, people who remember 50 First Dates as maybe the closest reference point. I mean, it's old people watching this show, John. I mean, if they made a reference of a movie that came out this year, I think a lot of people probably wouldn't understand it that were your typical audience for this show.
Well, that was the least of the issues here, but poor Ricochet here. AJ tells Pearce he doesn't like him anymore, therefore Omos doesn't like him anymore, and just stared him down. I didn't understand what this follow-up was, but they don't like Pearce. That said, these two had a hell of a match together. AJ and Ricochet, there was nothing close. This is the best thing on Raw tonight. There was a Styles clash that got blocked early. Ricochet used a head scissors, and then a pescado was caught by Omos, and he warned him to drop him. So he did, and he just dropped Ricochet right on the ground. There's a backflip to a German by Ricochet into a bridge, but then went for a cabrata into a forearm from Styles. Styles hit a brainbuster. Ushigoroshi goes for the phenomenal forearm, but gets hit with a recoil in midair for a near fall. Ricochet then goes to the top. He's knocked down. Springboard gets caught by AJ, and then he slingshots Ricochet, who bounces off the top into the Styles Clash and pins him in 13 minutes. This finish was awesome.
Incredible finish. Definitely one for the highlight reel of all-time Styles Clashes.
This is the only 13 minutes of this show I'm going to recommend.
Very good match. Going in, I was actually quite amazed how little I cared about seeing AJ Styles versus Ricochet. But then they started wrestling, and you just see this incredible chemistry, and you see the incredible agility and athleticism from two incredible performers that I think they've done really well with AJ. But man, it's a reminder of how much they've dropped the ball with Ricochet, who should, if anything, be on a higher level than AJ Styles by this point in 2021.
And lost. He doesn't get into the Rumble.
Well, I mean, I guess that's the story. He's just a loser. That's how they're trying to push him. I would say that they're trying to do it.
Great. They have accomplished the goal. I do view him in that light. So they have accomplished that.
The fact that they keep giving him airtime suggests to me that they are trying to set up some sort of redemption. But we know how well that goes. That can go either way. They can either be setting him up for a big WrestleMania win, or he could just be a loser by the end of all this, and you don't hear from him again. And if history with Ricochet in this company is any indication, it might be more so the latter. But at least tonight, I'm glad these two had a chance to do something special, because I think that spot will be remembered for a long time.
It was a very cool finish. This is the best match on Raw by a landslide. So all good things come to an end, and then all crappy things continue. That brought us into the dirt sheet. This was an all-time horrendous segment. Morrison and Miz are in the ring. These two are just nails on a chalkboard to me at this point. They do a big, elaborate intro for Bill Goldberg, and out comes 61-year-old Dwayne Gilberg. So he comes out, we do the sparklers, the whole 1998 retread. He comes in, he cuts a promo about blowing smoke out his nose and fire out his ass. Then Drew McIntyre's music plays. These announcers, they go so apeshit when Goldberg's music plays. Oh my God, it's Goldberg. They get the letdown. Then Drew's music plays. They're right back to square one. They believe, oh my God, he overcame his quarantine period. He's here. And then this shirtless imposter comes out. His wig falls off. He's holding a dagger. This guy tries to cut a promo. It's cut off. Then he asks to redo it. They're live. Miz and Morrison argue. Gilbert poses. Dude's ass is falling out of his kilt. Miz says he's going to cash in the contract.
Do you know who this actor was?
I don't know. It's probably someone backstage. I don't know who it was.
I'm pretty sure this dude was David Krumholtz, who is a very legitimate actor. You'll have remembered him from Slums of Beverly Hills, Harold and Kumar, the Santa Claus, Freaks and Geeks, Superbad, the Addams Family. David Krumholtz. You'll definitely have seen a movie with him.
Oh, I think this guy looks identical to the dude.
He is a very legitimate actor, and I suppose.
Well, he was awful in this segment. He was absolutely dreadful.
Well, it's not like he was supposed to be a great Drew McIntyre impression. He really was just there to play stereotypical fat guy with an ass crack sticking out. And, for somebody who, everybody needs work. Everybody needs to work right now. So that's who it was.
It was him. Okay. Well, what a bizarre segment to say, hey, we need an actual actor for this.
I guess he was available. Dwayne Gill, by the way, recently had a heart attack. There's a GoFundMe that was out for him recently. So seems like he's doing fine, but definitely
oh God, he had a heart attack on November 25th.
Yeah.
2 months ago.
So concerning, perhaps, seeing him travel and being a part of an environment like this. But
well, he was essential for this show.
Well, medical bills are expensive. I mean, that's the other thing as well.
This was just an all-time terrible segment, I thought. Bobby Lashley, Shelton Benjamin, and Cedric Alexander against Riddle, Dorado, and Metalik. Riddle's foot is wrapped, but then the beginning of this match was Benjamin and Alexander couldn't get along. MVP's upset. Riddle gets the hot tag, and he just runs wild. The announcers note he's not showing any issues from the foot. He misses a floating bro. Cedric gets in Shelton's face. Lashley just tags in. He's sick of all this. Spears Metalik, hurt Lock, and they won in 12 minutes and 19 seconds. Our valiant babyface then gave a cheap shot to Bobby Lashley and then sprinted on his bad foot away from him. I was just rooting. Oh, Riddle. Yeah. And then Cedric and Shelton continued to argue.
Man, Riddle is just the worst. Like, he's just like the worst baby.
Like, come on, Bobby, get him. Get him. I'm rooting for Lashley to just annihilate this guy.
Like, imagine if Ashton Kutcher from like Dude, Where's My Car was also a sore loser who like cheated to win and like won't accept defeat till he'll sneak attack you after the fact. Like, how am I supposed to like this guy?
Because Bobby Lashley stomps on cement.
Okay.
Protects his opponent. Backstage, Elias is with Jaxson Ryker. There's not going to be any misunderstanding this week. Ryker apologizes for not understanding the instructions last week of doing the opposite of what he was told. He said, we got our signals crossed. Elias says, this isn't Thomas the Tank Engine. It's Monday Night Raw, which, at least on the former show, which I've watched a lot of over the last 3 years, the trains always get out of the station on time on that show. I can't always say the same thing on Raw.
Very nice.
It's a very simple concept of Thomas the Tank Engine, okay? Train leaves, has a destination, it overcomes, it gets to the destination. Every episode. I don't need to be swerved, nothing lights on fire. There's no, I know that I'm always going to root for Thomas. Thomas is never going to threaten to murder Percy.
It's not 3 hours either.
Oh, it's 28 minutes, tops. Ryker says he's going to beat Jeff Hardy until he accepts the universal truth of Elias, whatever that means. Then we got an actual promo from Drew McIntyre, who is in fact at home, still recovering from COVID, but he's stronger than ever. He makes fun of the segment from earlier. He says Raw is kind of like the circus. You've got the clowns like Miz and Morrison, and then you have people like me, the lions. He respects Goldberg. He better bring his best version or he's going to get eaten alive. And Drew is coming back next week to Raw.
Yes, he is. He's back. Yeah. Yep.
This promo was fine.
It's fine.
Yeah. Jeff Hardy, Jaxson Ryker. They had a match. Ryker tried the bulldog choke. And then Tom Phillips said that Jeff Hardy, who has declared himself for the Rumble, is preparing for his 6th Royal Rumble appearance. 6.
That can't be right.
I couldn't fathom that. I didn't check it.
It'd probably be like 16th, if anything.
Like, he would have been in what? The first one, like 99? He would have been in that one?
Probably.
Like he had the break, but I can't imagine he's only had 6 Rumble appearances. I guess it's possible.
Right. Yeah, I can't think. Well, we'll see.
Someone in the room check for us. Yeah. He went for a twist of fate, goes for the swanton. Elias knocks him down, DQ in 3:11, and Ryker's looking all surprised. He tells Elias, I said not to help me. And he argues. Elias says, you wouldn't have kicked out of the swanton. I could have kicked out of it. And Hardy attacks Ryker, but Ryker makes his own comeback and takes him out with a sidewalk slam. Another babyface that you have all the faith in the world in, who tried to attack from behind and he got laid out.
So the running gag is that they can't communicate about whether or not they want each other to help.
No one gets along. There are no friends on this show. Everyone hates each other.
No, these two get along. They're just like, kind of fools. It's like last week it was...
They're the clowns. They're part of the clowns.
It was Elias wink wink saying don't help me, and then Jaxson Ryker actually thought he meant don't help me. This week Jaxson Ryker thought Elias wasn't going to help him, and then it turns out Elias thought he meant, I thought you said not to help, not to help. I thought they were adorable. I thought they were cute. And then when he hit the swanton, nobody kicks out of that. I could have. I thought that was pretty funny. Like, it's a stupid storyline that I got a kick out of tonight.
Sure. They promote that next week, Drew McIntyre and Bill Goldberg will both be on the show. And hopefully Goldberg has a better verbal attack on Drew McIntyre, something to legitimately accuse him of.
Then what?
Then the made-up accusation of 2 weeks ago. Yeah. Asuka and Alexa Bliss, non-title. Alexa is laughing, making a bunch of faces. Asuka hit her with a shining wizard. The light short circuit, we go dark, and we go to commercial. Come back, power is restored. Bliss is just standing in the ring.
She's wearing like a different outfit. She's got black lipstick now. So that's
she had a wardrobe change during the break.
Yeah, they're trying to
Asuka is frozen in fear of this.
See, they're trying to like convey the fact that this is some sort of transformation, the way that you would get with The Fiend and Bray Wyatt. But it's not much of an impressive trick when it happens in the span of a 3-minute commercial break. You know? It's like, it's one thing if it's lights out and then lights back on and this person's completely different. But like 3 minutes, like that's enough time to, I don't know, just completely like put on a giant cosplay outfit.
Yeah, it's like she's playing Courtney Love and Asuka's just frightened by this. So Bliss is just standing there. Asuka is like scared to death in the corner of this woman. So then
and Alexa Bliss turns into like prime Anderson Silva here. She's like dodging every strike.
Okay, I went with Killer Coda here.
That too.
So she's emotionless, and yeah, she's avoiding strikes. Asuka then lands a knee, but sends her into the corner, and Alexa bends over and leans at her, and this frightens Asuka again. She stops in her boots. Alexa tries with the mandible claw, and Asuka tries to fight her. Asuka's lifted up, and then hits a spinning back fist and a head kick. Alexa no-sells it and just grabs her, holds her forever, and then hits the Sister Abigail that Asuka does not try and defend, and she pins Asuka in 11:38. The announcers yelled, "What the hell just happened?" And then we do an extreme close-up of Alexa, and then she changes back to regular Alexa and mouths the words, "Let me in," as I let myself out and was done with Raw.
So the idea is that the Fiend has now possessed Alexa.
Yes, we had an intergender match that WWE can pull off.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, they're doing that on SmackDown as well with Sasha and Reginald. So I guess
is Sasha going to take over the body of I don't know.
Technically, I suppose you can get away with it if it's a man possessing a woman's body. But we don't know we don't know the gender of the Fiend. I think the Fiend is gender fluid. So that's the story that they're going with. It's the Fiend's return from after being burnt in Bray Wyatt's carcass. He's now returned in Alexa Bliss's body, and that's the professional wrestling show that we just talked about.
So Alexa wouldn't have a claim to now go for the title. She did not win a non-title match. Bray won the non-title match.
Well, I mean, Bray doesn't really exist.
Is Bray going to win the Women's Royal Rumble?
Is Bray going to win the Women's Royal Rumble? The Fiend might. I don't think Bray's body is burnt.
Sorry, the Fiend.
Yeah, the Fiend.
Keep all my characters straight.
Yeah.
So I'm lost on this show. This was a brutal episode.
Yeah, they've really gone off the deep end with this Alexa thing. It's like, I think you need something to really ground it. Like, you need an element there that still feels human enough. And with Randy Orton now being super comic book character, it just, it's good. It has gotten to the territory of alienating people more than drawing them in. And I could be totally wrong. Maybe the mainstream, like your casual audience will love this shit. But I can't imagine like
casual audience isn't watching.
I can't imagine how complex this is for somebody just stepping into like wrestling. Hey, it's Monday. Let's remember Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock? Let's check that show out. And then seeing this show, I would love to know their reaction. But anyway, it's a story and it's the main story that they're going with. They're going all in with it.
I think there's going to be a lot of negativity towards this show. And then the ratings are delayed tomorrow. So Wednesday, the numbers are going to come out and they're going to be higher, because they have no football now to go against. And that's going to be an evaluation of, everyone was so negative on this show. No, that the number being up this week has absolutely nothing to do with the quality of the show, and it was not great tonight. And I think that is an overall trend that is concerning with Raw. And I don't think that this is the direction. And they are doubling down. Like, this is the entire focus of Raw, is doing this. Like, the Fiend is, whether he's there or not, he is the dominant theme of the entire episode.
Yeah, this type of storyline. And obviously, like, Drew not being there, you kind of have to rely on this a whole lot more. But last week was going to be this, fireball stuff, regardless of whether or not Drew was present. I think in the weeks to come, you'll see more Drew Goldberg. You'll see more push for the Rumble.
They only got 1 week, Way.
Oh, yeah, you're right. So what is the match? Like, I guess Alexa's going to be, the Fiend stuff is going to be part of the Rumble, and I suppose like Orton stuff is going to, the Fiend Orton storyline will take part in the Rumble matches themselves.
Yeah, unless they change things up, like they've just announced Orton for the Rumble, and the Fiend, they haven't announced anything. He's still dead.
Haven't they announced Alexa?
Alexa is in the Rumble, yes.
So the Fiend is in the Rumble.
Oh, sorry, dude. I can't keep up with this at this point. I'm done. So that was the show. Let's take some feedback. I can't imagine. This show, I'm going to predict, gets a 2. A 3.6. Wow. I think that's generous. Maybe all for Ricochet and AJ. Andrew from Cape Breton. Raw was sloppy in parts tonight. I think the main issue was when Bobby Lashley stomped the ground with so much force. It not only injured Matt Riddle's foot, but sent shockwaves through the production truck. Some of the matches were good, but Raw still has the same issues of repeats. This might be an unpopular opinion, though. Bray Wyatt is one of the worst wrestlers in the history of the company. Even look back at his run, it seemed like a cool gimmick at first, but it spiraled into him randomly, incoherently, before taking some time off. Now with The Fiend, again, I was intrigued, but it quickly fell off the rails after that Hell in a Cell match. He's only been able to have one good match since becoming The Fiend, and that was against Daniel Bryan, who also happens to be one of the best of this generation. And now with this gimmick, it's like a black hole that sucks everything in around it and obliterates it. Show is the usual fare, 3 Dick Beyer masks to cover your burns out of 10.
Go to Anthony, who says, under any other circumstance, seeing Dwayne Gill on TV after the man nearly died of a heart attack late last year would be a highlight. The man entertained fans throughout his career as a comedy character, and at the time, fans took for granted that this is a man who lived doing what he loved, and 2020 couldn't take him away. I'm glad. But don't bring him back during a pandemic. No rating, terrible movie, WWE.
Nick writes, another Raw that at best was meandering and at worst was hard to watch. Sad state of affairs for an episode 2 weeks away from the second biggest show of the year. Randy's work over the course of 2020 was super compelling. However, the last 2 weeks feel like an attempt at melodrama that was boarded on self-parody. Styles Ricochet was the highlight of the show. However, I'm not getting my hopes up for an extended push of WWE's most wasted high flyer. Really appreciated Alexa's great character work as well, but on the whole, this show felt inconsequential.
Adam says, after Raw, I'm left thinking about 2 things. First, the AJ versus Ricochet match. Not about their match, but their individual untold documentaries. AJ's just debuted on the network, and his main message was that he has earned where he is. I couldn't help contrast it with Ricochet's I Shouldn't Even Be Here documentary. Secondly, and most importantly, there are only a few more days until the next episode of WandaVision. Have you had a chance to watch the Untold?
No, I haven't. Is it good?
It's really good. It all centers around his debut at the Royal Rumble, and at this point with WWE like network documentaries, they're very free to kind of talk about their legitimate histories and the path that they took here. So you saw a lot of TNA footage.
There was TNA footage in it.
Yep, plenty of it. Talking about just it really started with him being in WCW, having a tryout in WWE, and then ultimately joining TNA for years. Got into a bit about like him being in New Japan, and of course the big day of his debut. And the best moment, of course, this is a scene that's etched in stone, and they're making a whole documentary out of it. But it's like AJ Styles, like he's about to come out number 3 in the Rumble. The words "I am phenomenal" come on the screen. The place goes wild. He walks out, and the first thing you see, the Law up next. That sign is just like dead center. They're like slow-moing the whole thing, and it's just like right there. It's great, but it's a recommended watch. It's 30 minutes.
Did he talk about his short-lived nickname, the Pitbull?
Did not talk about that, no.
Oh, heck. Paul from New Jersey. I've been waiting for somebody to stomp on the feet of that dork Riddle for a long time. Bobby Lashley is a smart man. Would Ric Flair turn on his daughter for some young booty? Yes, he would. Then even let Peyton Royce wrestle a match on television. It's kind of a shame WWE didn't take Retribution seriously. If Ali went after Kingston initially for taking his spot in the chamber, I think that would have been a good storyline. I've been critical of Alexa Bliss promos of the past, but I think she settled into this character nicely, even though the content itself is pretty weird. Wouldn't call this a great show, but I think it's a step up from what we usually see. 5 out of 10. And he asks our favorite pop culture shoehorn reference tonight. TMZ, White Claw, 51st Dates, or Thomas the Tank Engine. I missed the White Claw reference. Do you remember where that was?
Yeah, it was Shayna. It was the Shayna segment where she's like, I'm going to kick you to the curb more quicker than an empty can of White Claw or something. It's become like a drinking game. Like, take a shot every time WWE Raw drops a random pop culture reference. But there you go.
At least that one was current.
Yep. It is a relatively new invention. Yeah, White Claw.
Well, thank you, everybody. I want to thank all the people for joining us live. If you want to hear us be more positive, we do many other shows this week. You know, like, how, honestly, throw Raw out of the mix. Like, most other shows, like, they're pretty damn consistent. I would say we come on...
Like wrestling, you mean?
Like, shows you watch in a given week that you come away with like, I'm not going to say, like, they're a home run every time. But there's a lot more positive than negative, I feel, out of pretty much any other show than Raw.
You talking about wrestling?
Yes, wrestling.
In general, yeah, the shows that we review. Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God. Like, Raw is definitely the most kind of like, you know, critical. We are definitely the most critical about this show because there's a lot to criticize. Like, we just saw, you know, a spirit possess a woman's body mid-match. We saw Randy Orton in a mask talk for like about 10 minutes at the start.
Did you ever watch Passions on NBC?
Never.
So I watched that show religiously, okay? And that's what I feel like I'm watching repeats of. That is what it's taking me back to. I think of Passions, which was a soap opera, a daytime soap that understood all the tropes of soap operas, and they ridiculously did not take themselves in the slightest bit seriously. And they did all of this stuff of like demon spirits. There was, what was the guy's name? It was like Miguel's older brother who his girlfriend was seeing someone else, and they couldn't tell him this secret because if he got bad news, he would die. So they couldn't tell him anything that would upset him because he would die. This was just like, they would go into like the other world. It was just ridiculous. And that is what I feel I'm reliving now with Raw, is Passions. But it's not as fun as watching Passions.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you. You got WandaVision, I got Passions. Okay, that is the clear-cut difference between you and me.
You know, I don't know what Raw could do to make it more Passions like for you. What do you recommend?
I don't want to go back to Passions. Let's not even discuss. We are going to be back on Tuesday. We've got Rewind Away. We're chatting about the Vince McMahon interview from 2014. Should be a fun discussion. And then Wednesday, the Up Next crew, the Up Next feed, we should mention. They will be now hosting Deep Impact on Tuesday nights. Davey Portman will be joined by Andrew Thompson on Tuesday night. So subscribe to the Up Next feed, and they'll be chatting about the post Hard to Kill Impact.
And then Shot in the Dark also drops on the Up Next feed on Wednesdays. And also, if you tune into twitch.tv/upnext, you can see them review AEW Dynamite Thursdays, I believe at 1 o'clock.
All right, check out all of that. And then we've got Dynamite and Up Next coming your way on Wednesday night. So there you go. That is it. We are out. Goodbye.